But let's talk about Ford having an $11,000 electric vehicle. Is this just legacy media clickbait? Legacy media being desperate because people more and more are tired of their propaganda or near propaganda. They're very slow to tell the truth, and sometimes they mislead us horribly. But let's see what's going on. Bloomberg television. I do like Bloomberg here for business. But let's see as they talk with Ford's CFO about an $11,000 electric vehicle.
When am I going to get to buy an $11,000 EV from Ford?
Well, it's coming.
When?
Well, I think you'll have to wait a few more years, but one of the advantages we have is we've been out with our first generation vehicles now for up to 3 years. We've been developing our second generation of vehicles, which is a whole new breakthrough. We brought in people from outside of Ford that have expertise in that, and we are developing a low-cost EV platform so that we can be a big part of this S-curve when it comes time. And that is, I think, coming in a couple years from now, and I think it's going to be a big inflection point for the industry when more affordable EVs come online.
Do you feel like the industry was surprised by the hybrid? I know that everyone has some hybrids, but really Toyota bet a lot on that farm. And it feels like...
So let's just pause it there. So John Lawler, hard to say that he'd be misleading us. So he got asked the straight question, when am I getting my $11,000 electric vehicle? And he basically said not right away, but we're working on it. Now, I doubt they're going to come out at $11,000. If they do, it's going to be for certain markets, and it's going to be a very small vehicle. So you'll think of, European, Asian market. I'm not sure we would get an electric vehicle at $11,000. This thing would have to be very, very small. Will we get a, $20,000 to $30,000 electric vehicle? Almost certainly. Probably in Canada, it'll be like high 20s, low 30s. We're going to get in Canadian dollars a high 20s, low 30s thousand dollar vehicle. I've been reading about it. I read about it back in 2014 that Ford wanted to come out with a very, very affordable vehicle. And back then, I think if I recall correctly, I remember reading something like the goal was 19,000 Canadian dollars, which would be about maybe 12, 13,000 US dollars. So I either think that we're talking about a very, very small vehicle that's electric that we probably won't have access to here in Canada or the US, but Ford could come out with an $11,000 electric vehicle. But I think that for vehicles that are going to interest us, we're probably looking more in the $20,000 US segment. But let's continue because, yes, John Lawler is going to make some great points when he's asked about hybrid vehicles.
Like the industry went full throttle into high-end EVs. Do you feel like we missed a trick here?
No, I don't think so. One of the things about Ford that's really good is we lead in hybrids as well. We have the number one selling hybrid truck and the number two selling hybrid truck. It grew 20% for us last year. We expect it to grow 40% this year. So we have the ability to provide our customers choice, gas, hybrid, and EV. And I think that's really important in the transition because it is a stepping stone for consumers.
Well, what's that balance right now? Because it seemed, at least coming into this year and really last year, when you started to see the rollout of the Mach-E and the Lightning, and you started to get this sense here that this was the direction the company was going. When the sales numbers came in.
And Ford makes great hybrids. Ford and Toyota originally partnered together. We have hybrids with very, very reliable transmissions and very reliable engines, just like Toyota. Toyota's excellent also at making hybrids. I love Toyota and Ford hybrids, folks.
We saw the demand was at least less than some of the initial projections.
Right, demand is less on the electric vehicles.
Yeah.
We have 3 divisions, and we broke them out into segments last year so that you could see what's happening with each of the businesses. Mm-hmm. We're growing across all 3 of those businesses. Our Pro business is very profitable. Our Blue business is profitable.
And the Ford electric business, I predicted that they'd lose between $4 and $5 billion for 2023. I predicted that about halfway through 2023. That's about what they lost, about $4.5 billion on the electric side of Ford's electric division. However, the fact that the demand is less is kind of good. Bringing down production when you're losing money, roughly $32,000 US dollars on every electric vehicle you sell is good. You bring down production while battery prices are, they had a crazy peak. Battery prices have come down, but selling less and, well, making less. All the early adopters who were really angry and really wanted their vehicle, they've got their Ford electric vehicle. So producing less right now will help Ford bleed out less, losses in the billions of dollars. And it also gives us a chance to get into the new battery technology at Ford, which is going to be unbelievably incredible, folks. Already LFP batteries, or lithium iron phosphate batteries, according to Jim Farley, Ford's CEO, he called that a small change. But he calls Gen 2 electric vehicles at Ford a major change, a monumental change, a huge change. Well, I already find LFP batteries to be lithium iron phosphate a huge change. Not just because they don't use the rare minerals of lithium ion, but because they cost about 4 times less to make, last about 5 times longer, and can be charged full pin, pedal to the metal from 0% to 100%. Lithium iron batteries, folks, are so much better. They're going to cost you so much less money to replace if ever they even go bad. But I think the shell of the vehicle will go bad before these batteries go, because with them being reportedly 4 to 5 times longer lasting than lithium ion batteries, what are we going to get? 25, 30, 35 years, 40 years out of these batteries? Heck, lithium ion batteries are generally good for 10 to 20 years. So these are going to be lifelong batteries, and some new Mach-E's check to see if you're getting one with an LFP battery, because if you are, you're getting a much better technology. But remember, Jim Farley said that the upcoming battery technology for Gen 2 is going to be so much better. Ridgeview, thank you for the support. Now, while I play this, I'm going to try to catch up on some of the comments here. Hopefully, using extra internet isn't going to kill the channel for the internet we're using here on the main camera. But let's get back to what's being said here, because this is pretty monumental stuff and really showing us what's going to be going down.
In EVs, we're still incurring losses at the start. But what you're finding is that as this transition happens, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when and how quickly. And I think that's what we're seeing. Yes, it's slower than what people thought.
Right.
The S curve, or the adoption curve, is less because we're now moving from early adopters to early majority. And there's different satisfaction issues that they have around charging and or price that needs to be resolved.
So you're still confident on the long-term
I am
trajectory?
very confident.
As you know, of course, Wall Street investors tend to focus a little bit more on the short term. And when they look at some of the losses in that unit, the question that seems to come up time and time again is, until we get to whatever that future is going to be, how much of the development on the EV side of that business can sort of feed into some of the other businesses in a way that maybe mitigates or at least makes those losses a little bit more manageable?
Well, there are technologies we're developing that will be part of the electric business, but will also be used across our pro business and our ICE business, our gas business. And that's things like the digital electrical architecture, which is a new upgrade we're going to bring forward here in the next couple of years. That's going to change the whole experience you have with the vehicle, from the way you interface with the interior of the vehicle, and then our ability to update the vehicle over the air and provide new features or experiences or services. And that'll be across all three. So part of the development for the electric business is also going to help the gas business as well as the commercial business.
So just broad picture too, and I've covered commodities for a long time. I'm hearing reports like Glencore, for example, they might have to shutter a nickel mine because the demand for EVs isn't there.
So yeah, making a great point. They're putting a lot of money and losses in the billions of dollars, roughly $4.5 billion loss for 2023 into Ford's EV division. And of course, they got asked, well, how can we mitigate? How can some of this seem a little less horrific? Great point. A lot of things that are being learned, applied, and used in electric vehicles are going to be and paid for by the electric division for, of course, in the research and development segment portion of expenses. It's going to come over to the fleet division as well as Ford Blue, which is your gas-powered engines. Love the chat between Peugeot and Ridgeview going on right now between reliability of The EcoBoost engines, which M Peugeot got 250,000, is up to 250,000 miles on his F-150 EcoBoost, and Ridgeview talking about the 5-liter. Now, I'd like to weigh in on that and say that it's kind of like the LFP batteries and the lithium iron batteries. You know, the lithium iron batteries are the original batteries, and yeah, they are pretty robust. Just like the V8 is very robust, and the V8 is the naturally aspirated V8 with no turbos. I'd say can take a little more abuse or improper maintenance, sort of like the Japanese engines. It's engineered to take the abuse. Now, when you have turbos, Ford's turbos are very reliable, but more like a European vehicle that needs to be properly maintained to be very reliable. Well, the EcoBoost, you don't want to use and abuse how you do those oil changes. You don't want to be using, bad oil filters, and you don't want to go way beyond your interval for changing the oil. So M Peugeot, good evening. Thank you so much for being here. QB Gaming, thank you so much. So lithium ion, we just talked about how lithium ion batteries, yeah, they can be great. People have this false sense or this idea that, so many catch fire and they don't last very long. They think they're going to be changing out the batteries the way you need to change out, little rechargeable batteries, or how cell phone batteries kind of aren't great 3-4 years later down the road. Well, vehicle lithium ion batteries are actually very good. They're warranted for 8 years, and I suspect many people will get more like, other than the rare ones that break early on under warranty or right after warranty, other than the rare cases, a great majority of them are going to be lasting 15 to 20 some years. But lithium iron batteries, the LFP batteries, they're known to be roughly, I Googled it up, and Google, what I found was saying that they're about 4 times more, they have about 4 times longer durability. So that's fantastic. And their recharge cycle, they can take many more recharge cycles, and they don't lose their efficacy as much as lithium iron. By efficacy, I mean, their original stats when the batteries were new.
And that's causing them problems on the mining side. What I see playing out, though, is when that S-curve really moves, you're not going to have the stuff. Like, how do you make sure you have the nickel, the lithium, all the stuff you need when the demand isn't there today?
Right. Let's go back 18 months, right?
Okay.
18 months ago, the narrative was, look, people aren't going to have the minerals or the batteries, so you have to vertically integrate. You have to create your own battery plants, right? So it's shifted a bit. I think what needs to happen now is we need to be more thoughtful as we go forward. And of course, we're going to have to balance that. But I think the demand signals as we move through time are going to be much clearer than they were a year ago or 2 years ago. And so I think we'll have a little bit more time to get out in front of things.
What is your biggest headache? I'm going to give you like 5 multiple choice. Okay?
That's a great question.
So what's the biggest headache you have right now? Is it government policy? Because that could change in like 8 months. Tesla price cuts, competition from cheap China EVs, or your costs, whether that's labor, whether that's material cost, or interest rates?
Yes.
Awesome. Good. I'm glad we solved that.
Those are 3 key variables that we need to work on continuously.
What's the hardest for you?
I would say that right now, it's cost. It's making sure that we get to an affordable cost structure that can allow us to generate.
And remember, in last week's live, we talked about how Ford's CEO, Ford has declared that in the future, come Gen 2, they're going to be profitable after only 12 months. So he's saying that's the hardest challenge, which I think that's great news, because it looks, from the sounds of it, that Ford's got that challenge covered. Future Ford EVs will be profitable 12 months after launch. You can catch that on Ford Authority, folks. And the whole article, fantastic article, and it's talking about how Ford CEO Jim Farley has been keen to talk about the automaker's second generation all-electric vehicles, which will be simplified, fully updatable, and ride on dedicated platforms, making them quite profitable. So profitable after only 12 months after release. Ford's going to make money. They're not going to continue to lose billions. I'm not too worried about my Ford stock. I've always kind of played where I let the Ford stock rise 15 to 30%, sell, it drops down by 15 to 30%, and then I start the whole process over, and they have a great dividend. I really like Ford stocks. I don't have I don't have any financing licensing, so please, this is not financial advice to base your life on. Don't ruin your life savings on what I say. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do like to play around on the stock market. It's kind of like gambling. It's kind of like gambling, but it's only a portion of the portfolio. So let's get to talking. So yeah, let's finish up. Let's wrap up talking about this $11,000 vehicle. I love the comments section and Peugeot, Ridgeview, and a few others talking about, hey, maybe it's an electric bike. I think it might end up being a little wider than an electric bike, but we're probably talking about a little like city driving electric vehicle. It's going to be very small. Will Ford overall be dropping prices on electric vehicles? As an insider, I can tell you that even though we've had several price drops, even the current models you have now still have maybe a little bit more price dropping in them. And if they don't, that's okay, because Ford's going to be bringing along new electric models, which will be less expensive than when we saw these electric vehicles get revealed and unveiled in 2021, 2022, and 2023. You know, my F-150, for example, bought it at $112,000. It dropped by $10,000. Then in the US, now you can get in Canada for about a 2-week period this month, you can get $7,000 off, or the other 2 weeks, really good interest rate in the US. My model's dropped by again, $7,000. So it's overall $17,000 less, which kind of leads us to episode now 6, major problem with electric vehicles. And only one solution. So let's